Okay, maybe we'll kick off. So got a good turnout tonight. It's good to see. Um, I think we'll start off with some introductions. Today is about storytelling, but we're really giving you a really low bar to start from because the stories that we'll tell you are kind of what? They're okay, but it's giving you an example to start from so that you can get better. We'll give you the structure. We'll give you some context around how you can use it in different situations, and hopefully that gives you something that you can walk away with and use after this. So, David, do you want to do a quick intro? We'll start from yep.
Hello, my name is David Castillo. I'm from America, from Texas, but I'm not a cowboy. I've been in Japan here for about 8 years now. I have kind of an extensive business background, but when you come to Japan, you realize that all that goes out the window, and you have to kind of restructure your approach. So I'm happy to be here today, a bunch of professionals I can see, and I hope to learn from you guys as well.
Thank you very much. So my name is Thom. I'm from Washington, D.C., and I'm not a politician, thank goodness. I've been in Japan on and off for 30 years, but 20 years straight. And David, I completely agree. You know, when you're in Japan, you have to operate your way, but, you know, to the local conditions as well. So I'm really happy to be here to share a story, and certainly look forward to hearing your stories later as well. Thank you.
Cool. My name is Matt. I used to live here back until 2022. I'm back in Australia now, but often come back to do sessions like this. I came for Sushi Tech early this year. And I think the reason why we're doing storytelling, I don't think it matters whether you're Japanese as a non-native speaker or you're a native speaker. I think equally we struggle to tell stories or implement narrative into the way we communicate. And so that's the reason why we're here today, to help give you some structure and give you some steps that you can implement today, walk away with, that hopefully help you start to tell better stories, engage your audience better, but also look at ways to engage different kinds of audiences as well, and thinking about how you can also deliver that story a little bit better as well. So let's get into it. So today we will cover my story, then Tom's story, then David's story. We'll go into a little bit about delivery and a little bit about different ways of engaging different cultures as well. So who here has told a story before? Hands up. Awesome. Pretty sure that's everyone, and we've tried in different forms, whether it's talking to someone on the street, someone in our family or friend network, or even in a professional capacity like this. So who's told a story recently? Okay, tell me about it. How did it go? Great. So you captivated the audience. Okay. Anyone else told a story recently? Yep. And how do you captivate your audience?
Personal connection. I don't know if that's a vague answer, but like understanding what interests them, even if there's a language barrier, and then using various mediums to tell that story, not just through words.
But I guess there's some basic or common interests or common ground that you've got there that helps you understand the audience better, engage them in a better capacity as well. Yeah, awesome. Anyone else? Yep, at the back.
What was the interest of the people we were talking to? First of all,
Yep.
We get to the pocket, right? And we try to look on Facebook, LinkedIn, and trying to understand a little bit how these guys, think. What is it that they like? Well, the conversation went well. However, they had two good points that I think we have to work on.
Okay.
So, yeah.
But I guess that comes down to the example of doing your research or understanding your audience before you prepare, like while you're preparing. So today we're going to cover 5 different structures. The first one is the origin story, kind of like the hero origin story. You as the founder, how you came across the problem and wanted to solve it, and the invitation to your audience. Next one is what we call the villain frame. It's where you see maybe something is broken, whether it's a particular system or a particular offer, or maybe there's nothing that exists that solves the current problem, how you observed it, and how you came to fix it. The next one, the before-after bridge, probably more commonly known as a case study, we use in marketing, in sales quite often. The reluctant expert is when you tried to solve your own problem and other people wanted in on that solution. And then finally, the future newspaper test is what is your solution going to look like 3 years from now? So if you change the world today, 3 years from now, what are the headlines going to be saying about your product? Okay. So who's heard of the startup called Timee in Japan? Anyone? Yep, got a few. So back in 2018, when I was living here, I was working with the founder, Ogawa-san. He had about 20 staff at the time, and he was applying for his first international pitch competition in English. But his command of the English language probably wasn't that great. I worked with him for 6 weeks. We worked on his story, about how he came from the world of shogi, about how he'd already failed his own venture before, about how he was inspired by his grandfather, who was also a business owner. Together, 6 weeks, we built a story around his origin, where he'd come from, and what had brought him to build Timee at that point in time. It wasn't until probably the second last session that I realized he was actually an incredible person. The second last session, he'd come back, he'd spent hours relentlessly practicing his pitch, memorizing it. And so the second last session, when we went to just give him an opportunity to basically practice what we had been working on, he told his whole story from scratch, 5 minutes, without checking any of his notes, and all of a sudden it felt like his English had improved dramatically, just in the space of a couple of days. Fast forward, and he went overseas, he came back, and he'd come third in the competition. And he was over the moon. Even though he didn't get the 10 grand, which was the final prize, he was ecstatic about getting a place, about meeting new people and being able to tell the people his story. If you actually know Timee, their mascot is a quokka. So it's an animal from Australia, from Perth, and you'll notice the mascot is smiling. And I remember asking him, I said, why did you choose that mascot? And it said, because that animal is always happy. And his vision is to make people happy. If you're not familiar with Timee, Timee basically is an app that helps students or working mothers work with like hospitality, restaurants, or basically gig economy kind of opportunities, and they get paid there and then that same day. It was a game changer in Japan back in 2018. Now, if you look at Timee, it's a $1 billion company, they've IPO'd, and he's got a team of, I think, 800 staff. And they probably one of the better paying companies for engineers in Japan as well. So this story just makes me think about, in general, how we tell stories. I think there's an opportunity to really help people, give them structure, give them context, and help them deliver a more engaging story. And that's really why we've put this session here today, and that's really the foundation of my story. So let's talk about this story. The origin story, or the origin, I guess the superhero origin, we talk about what you see as the world so far. That's step one. Step two, we talk about when that particular moment became personal. And for me, that was probably working with Ogawa-san, seeing him change dramatically, or so dramatically, overnight as he'd practiced so relentlessly on that pitch. Number three is the turn. What did you decide to do as a result? As a result of that, I've worked with founders, countless number of founders on their pitch. We've done pitch competitions together. I've given feedback on people's pitch decks. And I think now is a chance for us to really go wide with helping people tell better narratives and embrace narratives in the business. And so if you'd love to connect with me after this or on LinkedIn, you'll have the opportunity to do that. So thinking about my story, any feedback, any questions, any comments? Any thoughts on the structure? Does this structure help you think about how you could tell your own origin story? Silence. Tough crowd. But I guess if you are going to use this is a great way to talk about yourself, about the why me aspect of your pitch, especially to investors. You can use this as a way to talk about how you observed the problem that you wanted to solve, that you're passionate about. You can use this as a way to show how visionary you are and what you want to change in the future as well. Let's move on. So, Mr. Peace.
Okay, so I'm still developing my storytelling skills, so I had to check my notes, unlike your master deliverer there. I'm going to use the villain frame. Let's see, here we go. So it was 2023 in Tokyo. A young entrepreneur had moved here from overseas on a student visa. He was attending a Japanese language school, generally committed to building his life and business in Japan. He had drive, he had vision, and he was doing everything right. However, he was about to be forced to leave. As we all know, visa issues have deadlines. We need to renew. It's not an easy situation. So as it was approaching and his business plan was just materializing, the standard path for foreign entrepreneurs, the business manager visa, even at that time was not in reach. And as we know, currently, it's even more difficult. So he had income, he had clients, he just needed more time and he needed a legal status. The system wasn't built for him. It was built for people who already had everything in place. So that's the villain in my story. The visa system, it's not Japan. Japan's great. I love it. Every country has these visa issues. However, they become barriers to what we want to do if we want to stay in this country longer. So for me, the villain is the gap between ambition and access, between wanting to stay here and having the structure to stay, between a great idea and the trust network needed to make it real. So language is part of it, culture is part of it, but the deepest barrier to all this is having the time to stay in Japan, to really build your business. So you need real relationships, and that takes time there, not just a pitch or a meeting or a networking event. They form over months or sometimes years to build the relationships in Japan to really be successful. Most international entrepreneurs don't have that time, and they don't have someone already on the ground who've done that work, who can connect them. So I decided to become that someone. not by selling introductions or by positioning myself as just a consultant, but by doing the work, providing structure, introducing to accountants and lawyers and the people that are needed to provide the structure and the confidence to do things the right way. So as that founder was struggling and running out of time, we were able to find a way for him to stay using the specialist visa in terms of being able to stay here, not the business manager. And so he's still here. His business is growing. His team is expanding. And when I saw just not he in trouble, I wanted to be able to provide that structure for more people. So that's essentially what I'm building now, is the ability to help people who want to stay here, who don't have the business manager visa accessible to them now. But if I can provide that platform and to share that experience, to stay in Japan longer, to build the relationships, the clients you need, that's really what I've always wanted to do. This kind of came back to my origin story in Washington, D.C. I was helping Japanese interns in there before the 9/11 attacks and all that shut it down. But I was signing visas for hundreds of Japanese coming to America under the J visa, and to have that ability to help people go to a foreign country and stay there, change their lives, achieve their dreams, it's very powerful. So I really want to do that more for people in Japan. So wouldn't say the system's a villain, but it is a barrier. And so that's why I tried to use this frame for my story. Thank you for listening, and feel free to reach out if you want to know more.
So you want to talk people through that structure? Maybe just refer back to elements of your story. So like if you name the villain, what was the villain in that story?
The villain is the barriers, the legal barriers, the system. I don't want to say the system. It's just, every country has a legal framework that we have to pass through. Country barriers that are faced. The villain is the visa system that we have to deal with.
Okay, cool. And what was the cost then?
Not the monetary
money, no,
cost.
that's right.
I mean, the cost is, the lack of being able to achieve your dreams. I mean, whether you want to go from Japan to another country or come here, especially for us being here, Japan is such a great place to be. I know we all love being here. That's why we are staying. It's not perfect, but it's a great place to be. So the loss of being able to stay in a great country like Japan, for me, is the greatest cost.
Yep, so they lose their options or their ability to stay.
Yes, indeed.
And so what was the mission then, I guess, for you?
My mission was to provide a framework, a structure that allowed them to actually stay in Japan, achieve their dreams, and be sustainable, be legal. So when the renewal comes up, it's not an issue of will they be able to renew. Sometimes the first visa is quite easy, but when you renew, all the paperwork has to be shown properly. And so that's really what I had to learn was it's not the first one, it's the renewal. You have to do everything properly, along the way.
Cool. And then finally, your invitation, I guess, like your call to action.
Yeah, call to action is, hey, if you know somebody who would like to know more about options of staying in Japan that are beyond the business manager visa, definitely reach out and we can talk about it.
Cool. Thank you.
Thanks.
So do we see that structure working? Any comments or questions, thoughts? Yep.
Just a comment on maybe personability. These are very different strategies. I mean, I obviously you were taking some notes from what you've written down. I think that his personality kind of led the way in the delivering of his story. Yours seemed to have maybe like a triplet kind of flow that I find often in AI-produced works that maybe pulls away from your essence, and so that's just my comment.
Yep, great feedback.
Good catch.
Anyone else? Yeah, question?
The formats are 4-point format. Is there any specific reason that it's a 4-point format?
We're just trying to give it, like, I guess it's like a beginning, a middle, a bit of a climax and an end. Sorry, just
I
to kind of
see.
simplify the structure
Okay.
for you. So step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4.
Okay, makes sense. Thank you.
Anyone else? Shall we move on? Mr. Castillo.
Okay. Throughout my career, I've been used to working with a lot of people, and I've trained a lot of people. I've trained a lot of business individuals to become successful business management. So when I came to Japan, I thought I could emulate that success here, just by talking with new individuals and seeking out what they needed. Well, many of them, they're just trying to progress into the world market. So one of the things they need is business English skill. So I thought, okay, great. That's something I can do. I'm very patient. I can teach individuals. And for the most part, it started out fine. Until recently, I actually worked with a student who was in sales. He's trying to enter the global market. So great. I started out with him. I worked on the basics, what I thought he needed, and grammar, vocabulary, pronunciation, the typical issues that people try to improve on. After a little bit of time, I realized that he wasn't progressing. And I noticed that he seemed visibly frustrated. I could tell because he kept saying, muskashi, muskashi, right? So I know that he's visibly frustrated, and to the point that progression was very slow. He even got to the point where he didn't physically say it, but he thought maybe this wasn't the route for him. Maybe he needed to try something else, maybe get an interpreter or something. So hearing that, seeing that, that wasn't his failure. That was mine. Because I failed to realize and see him and understand him. So I tried to generalize him. That's the before. The after was, yay, he did great, right? He did fantastic. He started leading management meetings on his own. He wanted to sales pitches with clients. But that's the after. How did we reach that point? Did he just suddenly get it? No. We had to bridge that point. So I had to look at myself and see, okay, what am I doing wrong? How do I reach this individual? How do I get him to this point where he's not confident in public speaking or speaking with clients, and getting him to the point where he can at least feel confident? Because that's what we want. We want to see confidence. We want to build confidence. Confidence is everything. So I talked to him and I asked him, let's focus on real world job event. Bring me some of the things you do at work. What are your calls like? What are your meetings like? Bring me examples of what you do at work, and we'll emulate it. So we even got to the point where we started doing role plays. We had meetings. I played that annoying guy who always interrupts you when you're trying to talk. And how did he deal with that? Because these are things that when you talk to Westerners, it happens. No, we just do that. So he started to gain confidence in what he was doing. And after a few weeks, I could see that confidence, that progression, to the point where he finally was able to hold meetings, facilitate them on his own. To where we got to the after, he actually held a client meeting, and he felt really good about it. So the point that I'm trying to get to is that sometimes you got to focus on the communication, not perfection. And that's what I really focused on, is just getting them to communicate and building on that. That was the bridge that we used. Finally, afterward, I did hear from him, and he thanked me. He was really just glad that you could see the progression and the confidence. And I always let him know, don't worry about making mistakes. You're going to make them. Focus on the communication. If you have any questions about my story or how I reached out to him or anything, please.
Well, we'll at least go through the structure. Like, I think this is the typical case study you see, the before, the after, how do we get there? And then typically in the client's words or the person you're working with own words, how did they feel about the outcome? So if we go through the story again, Dave, what was the before? Just quickly.
The before was he was seeking to improve his English communication in business. He had low confidence, low self-esteem, couldn't really even share his opinion. And so I tried to build him up in a general structure. Eventually, we noticed there was no progression.
Yeah, great. And then, so the outcome of your work together, the after?
The outcome is that he was a repeat client. And that's, if you're in business, you want repeat business. That's how you become successful.
And so the bridge that you took to get there?
The bridge that we took to get there was realizing what mistakes I was making, because they're not his failures. In business, they're yours. You have to reach out to the client and really see what they need, what they want. And in many cases, you have to change and adjust just to reach out to that client.
And finally, in their own words?
Their words, they were very happy to work with me. They were ecstatic that they could hold a meeting on their own. That was my joy, seeing his success. It's really great to see when they're excited about learning and trying new things.
Awesome. So thoughts about David's story, or have you tried to build your own case study before? Successfully, unsuccessfully? Yes, I see a few nods. Yes.
Were you ever in a situation where the role was reversed, where you were in a situation where you were the one who was struggling and then somebody made a bridge, or you
Oh
experienced
yeah,
that?
definitely. Especially in up and coming in management, when you're younger and you're up and coming in management, you think you have all the answers and you're so overconfident. And then you hit that wall, that realization that you don't know everything. So the best thing that I learned was I didn't learn just from one individual. I actually took bits and pieces from many different individuals and I created my own style of management. And I think I bring that with me in my teaching style, because I'm able to be flexible in working with people.
So what advice would you have for a young entrepreneur who doesn't yet have those hard lessons? What advice would you have for somebody to accelerate getting on the other side of that?
Ooh, be open-minded for one. You have to be open-minded. You have to seek out advice, listen to different people, and make up your own mind as to what direction you want to go. Because not one person is going to have the answer. You have to listen to different voices and formulate your own idea. And you have to have the will to succeed. You can't say, I want. You have to use, I will. If you say, I want, that's an easy way out. Yeah. If you will something, you commit yourself. And you really have to commit yourself to doing, especially entrepreneurs. especially when you know that, what, over 90% of entrepreneurs fail? So you really have to have that enthusiasm to succeed.
If I can just add, I think the best entrepreneurs know their limitations. They definitely know their own strengths, but they also know their own limitations. And so when they hit those limits, they know when they need to seek out advice, help, or use a tool to help create the solution that they're looking for. So I think some of the best entrepreneurs out there are very aware of what they're capable of, but also what they're not capable of. Cool, let's move on. So they're the three structures that we wanted to show you via story. The next two are just structure alone. So effectively things that you can use. And if anyone wants these slides after the session, feel free to connect with me or email me. Always happy to send these as well. The reluctant expert really is you basically stumbled over an idea or you accidentally came across an idea, not with the intention to build a business, more with the intention to solve probably your own personal problem. There was nothing out there that existed, so the failure was nothing out there solved your problem currently. And so as a result, you went and built something yourself. It's probably pretty contemporary thing we see these days where many people are vibe coding their own solutions, essentially. And the proof where this actually becomes scalable is when other people see what you've built and want to buy it. It becomes an accidental business model only. So you're basically the reluctant expert. This kind of reminds me of Netflix. I don't know if anyone knows the Netflix story. It was originally just get some videos sent to your house. The guy one of the founders was just sick of paying late fees from hiring movies and returning them late. Initially, Netflix solved that problem by doing mail order delivery. And then obviously, Netflix today is the streaming platform that it is. But that's just another example of, I think, the reluctant expert. Questions, thoughts, opinions, comments? No? Okay, let's move on.
Really quick to add to that Netflix story. What's really interesting is that Netflix took out Blockbuster. Blockbuster was the pinnacle of business at that time. And they fell apart just because they could not adjust to change. They couldn't face it. They wanted to stick with their structure. There was no adjusting their business model. So by the time when they started figuring out that mail orders were the way to go or online systems, that's it. Netflix took over.
Yep.
So for this persona, how do you differentiate between something that's actually meaningful, like not just driven by personal problem or crisis, and something that's purely personal crisis? What to watch for?
In terms of?
In terms of that, okay, I'm having this idea and something, but can I build something really sustainable on it? Like whether it's gonna be very short-lived. What to watch for?
I think that comes out in step 4, your proof, your social proof. So you've built something for yourself potentially. How short-term or long-term is that solution? How sustainable, how viable is that business model? That comes out in the proof, in the market.
Okay.
Normally, obviously, when you are building a startup, we try to validate the idea first. This is kind of the reverse of that, where you built it for yourself, but you didn't realize there's a market that supports it as well. So that's kind of in the proof. That's why you're reluctant, because you didn't realize it was there. And then you kind of reluctantly built it into a business.
Okay.
Yeah? Okay. Hope that helps. Question?
Why is it important to, what's the purpose of the reluctant persona?
I think it shows almost a sense of innocence. Like, but why? Well, I think we like to think of entrepreneurs as people who are, I don't know, like they're go-getters and visionaries, and like we teach in entrepreneurship, we always say, you know, define your idea, define your ICP, like really find the market for it first. This is basically an exception to that rule. And it almost gives them, it almost like, oh wow, I can actually become an entrepreneur. Like they almost surprise themselves in some sense. So I guess the reluctance comes out of like they never had the intention to build a business. They never wanted to be an entrepreneur. They just wanted to solve something that was personal. The fact that it turned into a business probably surprised them, and they weren't even sure if they wanted to build it themselves until they started to see the business grow. Do you have any thoughts about that? Tom? Dave?
I'm trying to think of a CEO or leader of a company that started out. It's hard to think of one, because whenever you think of the most successful companies, you think of leaders. If you look at Elon Musk, I think Elon Musk kind of maybe reluctance with SpaceX or what's that, the microchip one? Neuralink, thank you very much. I think Neuralink maybe was something that he reluctantly got into, but he realized that it's going to change the world. That's the closest I can think of someone who because in business you want to succeed, right? But sometimes you get into something that you're not really sure of and still find a way to succeed. That's my point. Anything, Tom?
Yeah, I think it's an interesting point, you know, so not everybody wants to be an entrepreneur, but you create something and other people ask you for it, and then you have to decide, hey, do I give it away? Do I sell it? You know, do I have time for this? Do I find a co-founder? So I think everybody who's in that position has to solve that issue a different way, but I think putting that as the exception to the general rule, where entrepreneurs are generally seen as people who want to do something, and then they have this process to do it, versus somebody who just, again, wants to solve a problem, and they do it in an amazing way, and then other people say, can you help me? What do you do? Do you make it into a business, or do you just say, hey, sorry, you know, I have a job, you know, I can't do this as a business? So I'll be interested to hear people who have become reluctant entrepreneurs and, you know, what their journey story is.
Does that answer your question?
Sort of. I'm curious about the lack of compellingness. So like, or it seems to be like this American thing where you have to have a one-man hero, and he tells a story and he just pretends to be a reluctant billionaire or something like that. But I just don't see I don't see like do the stories have morals? Is the moral of the story is missing maybe for that?
Sure.
That's just,
sure.
What's the point? You know, what's the difference whether they're reluctant or not? Once they're an entrepreneur, then they are.
why are they telling the story?
Yeah,
They're
the story
trying
of
to
that one.
compel us to do something or
Right.
convince us?
I think also maybe it might be the target audience as well, because I would say like an expert is something that you put maybe to the customers than to VCs or anybody, because VC, they want to see, you know, that you are eager and, you know, going to kill anybody who gets into your way, while say, you know, the general audience or potential customers want something like maybe something more relatable, or there's also a lot of people want, you know, kind of the underdog story, you know, So that's where I think where the different stories come in, and that's also I use different types of these stories that were discussed here, depending on who is my target audience, who am I telling this to.
Is that becoming manipulative then? Is it a real? Where's the authenticity if it's like
Well, in my case, all the stories are real. It's just a matter of relatability. So, somebody who, with my creative writing business, a writer has, I use different story for them to relate to than if I'm talking with a reader or if I'm talking with potential investor from the publishing industry. So I think that's where this comes from.
Great. Let's move on. So finally, I think, Thom, you could almost readapt your story to this structure. So you want to try? Yes, future newspaper test. So go back to your, you've got an example? Anyone have an example that they want to try? Sure? Okay, go. So
Hey, awesome.
we'll go through the steps.
Mic check. Can you hear me? Okay, great.
So what's the world right now?
The world right now that we live in is having the systemic problem, I think, that everyone is familiar with. We have an underlying economic basis where the money that we earned is consistently and steadily losing value, right? That has all sorts of behaviors involved in it. When you know that you aren't going to have as much next year, what you end up doing is hoarding as much as you can. I mean, I think that the person that has 180 homes, it might seem immoral, but on some kind of logical sense, I can get it. So what I'm trying to do is to take a step back.
So the world you're creating?
Yeah, and make something where we have a better basis to value on, and hopefully along the way change the behaviors that we find in society. So I was looking around, what things do we already understand and know and use as some exchange? And I think that the kilowatt hour, based in physics, it's stable, could serve as a pretty good unit of exchange. So what I've set out upon is to do just that using blockchain technology. And anybody can claim that they've produced some energy. Trust me, bro, my meter, showed this much energy going through it. That's not really trustworthy. So what I did was create a new kind of contract, an escrow contract. And you guys might know that. It's like we have a house, you have a person with a deed, a person with money, and somebody else is holding them both to ensure that this person is qualified to go take an inspection. They have the keys to the house, and they do those processes. Along the same lines, this technique basically has two inputs. Somebody pays for energy. That money gets locked up into escrow. And then that same person, consumes energy. And out the other end, to the producer of that energy, gets an EBT. And that energy-backed token relates to the fiat, which is what was paid. And now all of a sudden you have somebody that has a token that is based in the physics, and then you have the access to participate in the fiat economy still. Something that allows this producer to gracefully play in both camps at the same time. So this model is a transitionary model from one that has a systemic end to it, something that I think we're all trying to avoid, and to one that I think allows us to maybe have a more unapologetically abundant outcome for all of us.
So what's the headline 3 years from now if a journalist writes about your solution?
The headline is that we no longer deal in a currency that is going to deflate. It's not as simple, it's not a really exciting headline, but when everything starts getting valued in this constantly produced unit of exchange, the behaviors change, the people start to change with it. I think the whole world can start to live a more vibrant life.
And the ask?
The ask is to open your minds, to consider that this option is really pretty risk-free. You get to play in both camps, so give it a shot.
Well done.
Who needs work? But yeah,
Okay,
thank you,
no,
guys.
it's good. It's good. Small round of applause for Garrett. Well done. So hopefully you can see that in action. Essentially, where you're at right now, what are you working towards? What's the headline a couple of years from now? And then that leads you to your CTA or your call to action. Okay? Okay, so working with Japanese professionals for about 8 years, one of the things that you see commonly in presentations from Japanese is they're very, very detail orientated. And I know working with companies like McKinsey, like Sony, like Goldman Sachs, there was always a challenge to balance the amount of detail with the amount of focus on the speaker. So in Japan, I think we're all here, so we probably understand how Japanese do presentations or pitches. It's very detail oriented. You know, your text is probably size 8 font, you can't read it, and it's very, very detailed, very, very intricate. Lots of graphs, lots of charts, lots of things to explain, and that presentation is probably going to go for 2 hours. If we compare that to Australia, we hate detail. We want it really simple, really short. We want you to get to the point as soon as possible so that we can make a decision. We are relationship focused, so we do build relationships on face-to-face interactions. We are very, I want to say, reluctant. We are very conservative, and we do business on trust. And so relationships take time to build, maybe in a similar way to Japan. But when it comes to pitching, we want you to get straight to the point. Don't F around, don't bullshit, just get to the point. 3 minutes, 5 minutes, done. How about the US?
Lead with vision, lead with the point. So this is, I agree with that. You know, get to the point first. You know that.
But
whole
what's your
sandwich method.
experience?
It's just show what do you want to accomplish first. You know, what is the end goal, and then explain the background. You know how we're going to get there, and then again, this is what the goal is. So I would say that's typically what I've seen. How about in Texas?
In general, I think in the US, you need to get people's attention right away. Basically on either the idea, the vision, or how are you going to get there. And then you can further explain what you want to do. But you have to capture their attention. If within 3 minutes, if you lose their attention, you've probably lost it forever. So I think generally in the US, things work a lot faster. I don't think people want to wait. They want to move quickly, which is very contrast to here in Japan. Things move very slowly.
Do you think some of these blocks change based on whether you're presenting to, say, a C-level executive versus a finance person versus a technical person?
Of course. If you're talking to a finance person, you're probably talking about budget a lot more thoroughly. If you're talking to C-suite, it's probably more strategic level conversation. You know, if you're talking to a VC, it's probably very short. Time is precious. If you're doing something like this, you know, it's the time allocated to you. So I think the point of this is not that it's country specific, more that it's audience specific. So really do your research. I think there was one example of the guy at the back, sorry, I didn't catch your name, but yeah, doing your research on the audience, on the people you're talking to first as much as possible before you prepare your presentation or your pitch. Yeah? And finally, delivery. Okay, so 3 simple things I want to cover. Pauses. When you're speaking and you want to leave a thought with the audience, just stop. Let it sit. Let them absorb the silence. I think in Western culture, we don't like silence. Is that right?
We don't like awkward silence.
Yeah. So you want to know the difference between awkward silence and how long to cut it off? But you can give yourself some space just to let it land. Pitch. So we can go really high when we want to cover details. We can go really low when we want to emphasize something. And finally, pacing. Again, when you want to get through the details, you can go as quickly as possible because it's not that important. But when you want something to really be emphasized, then you slow right down. Any other tips from the audience? How to deliver better? Yep. Sure.
I'd say one really key thing is body language. I think that's universal, you know? I mean, whether, depending on what the body language is in the culture, the country that you're in, eye contact is the most important thing. It's what I teach my students when speaking. It gives off confidence, you know, respect. I think boosting your delivery is your body language. It depends on what you're speaking on. If you're in a more casual setting, maybe being more calm is okay. You don't have to be so stiff, you know. I feel like I'm using these 3 points as I'm speaking right now, but anyway.
That's okay. That's why they're there.
Yeah, for me, I would say body language is like very, very important, as well as clarity, how you speak, your words, pronunciation, you know, for people to be able to understand you more. Yeah.
Awesome. We're very close to time, so we've probably got time for one question. Yes.
So you mentioned earlier that 90% of entrepreneurs fail. Somebody did. So what advice would you give us to not fail?
Don't be the reluctant expert.
There you go.
Validate your idea first. Talk to people. Define it. Do the market research before you build. That's pretty simple, yeah. If you're the reluctant expert, hey, credit to you. But essentially in entrepreneurship school, whatever that is, you know, define the idea, find your market, talk to them. If they don't like it, find another market. Maybe it's not the right solution. Maybe it's not the right idea. Maybe you need a different idea. So I think a lot of people, especially these days, AI makes it so easy to build. We get too excited with building, and we don't spend any time on building the business. And then we wonder why no one wants to come and use our product or buy it. Yeah. Does that answer your question? Yep. Okay. At the back.
Just one thing is, I think the journey is not about winning. I mean, if you don't lose, it's not gonna be enjoyable when, you know.
If you don't lose, you don't learn anything either, right?
I mean, exactly. It's part of the journey.
Yeah, I mean, we love to talk about success too much, I guess. And that's why I was trying to give some context or create a bit of expectation here. We're giving you stories, but today's not about the stories. Today is about the structure and giving you something that you can walk away with and use after this. So really the point is, hopefully these structures help you think about how you can use story in your own professional life, working life, entrepreneurial journey. And if you need any of the slides, come and see us after. We're all on LinkedIn, so feel free to connect.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you.
Matt, we have one more question.
I would like to ask the visa. So may I use the translate? Yeah, okay. So I came here with the goal of starting to business in California, as well as seeking sponsors and raising funds for the venture. From earlier this year until last month, I stayed in the United States for 2 months. So I feel from the sorry. How difficult is it to obtain the visa? So one thing that left a strong impression on me was how many Japanese people used the phrase the visa poverty. Visa poverty.
Poverty.
Poverty. Visa poverty.
This is the visa in the US, right?
Yes, in US. I can understand why the current legal system often makes it difficult even to stay in the US long term, unless people operate in legally gray areas that they're close to being unlawful. And I feel there are serious issues with that reality. I also learned that this is not only a problem for Japanese people, but for many foreigners who genuinely want to bring valuable products, skills, or ideas that are in demand in the United States. Because of these barriers, many people end up giving up on their goals. Yeah, if anyone has solutions or good ideas regarding this issue, I would truly appreciate your advice and insight. Yeah, so
Well,
thank you.
These guys are from the US, so probably no good asking me. Yeah. We'll talk after this. Yeah. Okay.